Mark Ellis, Ken Holtzman, and Ken Korach absolutely need to be inducted into the A's Hall of Fame in 2026, and I will tell you exactly why today on Locked On A's.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. My name is Boney, one name, all passion, lifelong A's fan who has been covering the A's for a little over a year now. Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your A's every single day. And today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. The AFC and NFC championships are practically here, 1 week away, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Locked On A's. Today on Locked On A's, we lay out the case for a three-pillar A's Hall of Fame class by walking through legacy from three different angles. Mark Ellis, the everyday standard bearer whose defense, toughness, and professionalism defined an era even when the spotlight didn't. Second, Ken Holtzman, the left-handed workhorse who helped anchor a dynasty and delivered when championships were the expectation, not the hope. And finally, somebody who we had on this show, Ken Korach, the voice who carried generations of fans through wins, losses, history, and heart, proving that Hall of Fame impact isn't limited to the field. Together, we're going to show why greatness comes in different forms and why all three belong under the same roof in the A's Hall of Fame. Scrolling below, you will see the A's Hall of Fame inductees, which started back in 2018 through 2025. Who is going to get in 2026? What is up, Pete? How are you, sir? RD Moss. I spoke with Ken Korach for a few minutes at the Las Vegas Jersey Sleeve event. He is thrilled the team is coming to Las Vegas. I'm sure he is. He's a class act. Big time guy. And at the end of the show, we had Ken Korach on the show about a year ago, a little over a year ago, in spring training last year. And I'm going to play a clip from that discussion I had with Ken Korach. First, let's talk about Mark Ellis. Mark Ellis wasn't a flashy all-star every year. He wasn't the biggest home run guy or the MVP candidate lighting up highlight reels. But that was exactly the point. Ellis played in Major League Baseball for 12 years, most of them with the A's, and he built a career that didn't rely on flash. It relied on reliability, fundamentals, and showing up every single day. Ellis posted a career .991 fielding percentage, ranking among the very best for a second baseman in Major League Baseball history at the time he retired. That's not good. That's consistency at a position where mistakes are costly. In an era where the A's often lacked big stars and offensive punch, he was the sort of guy that made plays that kept games within reach. You look at winners in baseball history and you will always see guys like Mark Ellis, the dependable, unheralded glue that keeps the infield together. Now, here's the real core of the argument. The A's Hall of Fame shouldn't be a National Hall clone where only soon-to-be Cooperstown guys qualify. This is about franchise impact, the players and figures who matter to the story of this team, regardless of league-wide honors. In Ellis's prime with the A's, especially from 05 to 08, Ellis was among the best second basemen in all of baseball. He led all American League second basemen with defensive stats like fielding percentage, and he graded out extremely well in overall value, when the team around him was struggling. He hit .316 in 2005 after missing an entire season. And guys, there's only been a few travesties I see in actual MLB stats. The couple that pop out and come to mind for me are, one, the number one travesty is the 2001 MVP vote, where Ichiro hit .350, 8 bombs, 69 RBIs, 56 stolen bases, 838 OPS, 7.7 WAR, and beat out Jason Giambi, who hit .342, 38 bombs, 120 RBIs, 1.137 OPS, 9.2 WAR. Maybe the biggest robbery in postseason hardware you can give. But Mark Ellis not winning a Gold Glove is right up there with it, man. How Mark Ellis does not have a Gold Glove is beyond me. One of the biggest travesties in awards given. But this isn't a story of a guy who was forgotten because he wasn't good. It's a story of a guy that was so fundamentally solid that voters with flashy narratives kept overlooking. That's exactly the kind of figure every franchise hall should celebrate. The player that was about identity. And when you think about the A's and the players they have won with, if you're going to have a poster child for that vision, it's Mark Ellis. Mark Ellis wasn't the blockbuster name. He was the steady heart of the team during some of its toughest years. Fans remember the plays, the professionalism, the consistency, the kind of presence that defines a clubhouse and becomes part of fabric. Ellis had that emotional connection. Fans remember how he played the game right. They remember the plays that matter, making the play in a key spot, showing up night after night, giving everything he had to the A's. Even after being traded, stories persist of Ellis spending time signing autographs for fans at a promotional event, even though he was no longer part of the A's. And when you look back on the chapters of A's history, Mark Ellis is the sort of guy who deserves enshrinement because he represented the franchise's grit. Not every Hall of Fame member needs Cooperstown statistics, but they need to embody the spirit of the team. And there's no question that Mark Ellis did that. He was the guy you trusted to make the play, the guy opponents respected, and the guy fans grew to depend on through thick and thin. That's real Hall of Fame conversation. Ellis just wasn't a number. He was a definition of dependability. And for that, he's earned a place in the A's Hall of Fame. No question about it. Coming up next, we shift from consistency to championships. This is where the conversation gets loud. Ken Holtzman wasn't just part of A's history. He helped write it. When the lights were brightest and the banners were on the line, he was taking the ball and shoving. Rings, wins, and a left arm built for October. The A's Hall of Fame is about players who turn season into parades. This is where the case becomes undeniable. I'll see you guys in a minute. The NFC and AFC championships are 1 week away. Saturday, we had Buffalo and Denver, and all week I told you about Josh Allen and Bo Nix, both to go over 1.5 touchdown passes. And why is this important? It's because every single playoff game day, FanDuel drops a profit boost pack right into your account. You open the app, grab your boost, and apply them to the bets you already like. For example, Josh Allen over 1.5 touchdown passes, Bo Nix over 1.5 touchdown passes, which was a winner. You put those together and it pays about 4 times your bet. You add a profit boost, now you're talking 6 times and maybe 7 times your money. Same picks, just more juice. Every play feels bigger in the playoffs, and FanDuel makes sure your payouts feel that way too. So head to FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and make sure you grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you have not already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. Guys, you're going to get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On A's, which is compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. You could find that at hashtag locked-on-a's. It's actually a pretty cool feature. You get to interact with all the Locked On hosts if you choose to. The cost isn't much, guys. It's a cup of coffee a month or $50 a year. $4.99 a month or $50 a year. Go check it out. Can you do that for me? Go to lockedonA's.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Welcome back to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the country, talking Hall of Fame 2026 flea market. I just want to say thanks for all the coverage, Boney. We couldn't have asked for a better host for the A's. It's a shame the original host restored to childish name calling, all for the supporting the team. They just had to draw that line in the sand. That's on them, not current fans. I appreciate that, Flea. Thank you for the nice words, man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Means a lot, brother. Means a lot. So back at you. We're talking 2026 Hall of Fame for the A's. Scrolling on the bottom of the page, you will see who has been inducted to this point. For those on audio, I will put that in the description notes or try to read it out towards the end of the show. That's for sure. Ken Holtzman. You know, when I was originally putting this together, I had to do a double take because I was so shocked that Ken Holtzman wasn't already in the A's Hall of Fame. How this guy's not in the A's Hall of Fame is beyond me, because Ken Holtzman wasn't just another arm in the rotation. He was a pillar during the A's rise to dynasty in the early 70s. He was traded to the A's in 1971, and he became part of a feared starting trio with Catfish Hunter and Vida Blue. In 73, Holtzman was the best pitcher in the staff. And worst case scenario, he was second to Catfish Hunter. But it was always those three. Over 4 seasons with the A's, Holtzman compiled 77 regular season wins with a sub-3 ERA during his prime years. He made 2 All-Star teams, 72 and 73. Holtzman also delivered in the World Classic, in the World Series. In the playoffs, he was phenomenal. He posted wins in key games, 3 straight titles. His postseason presence, a stabilizing arm when the stakes were highest. Check out some of his numbers in the postseason. 1972, he was 1-1, 2.7 ERA in 16 2/3 innings. 73, 3-1, 2.49 and 21 2/3 innings. And 74, 2-0 with a .86 ERA in 21 innings. How this guy is not in the Hall of Fame is beyond me. Mark, what's up, bud? One more month till we get the show rolling. Mark Ellis was my favorite player growing up and is so underappreciated. That 077 was the best aside from, for sure. I said at the top of the show, Mark, it's an absolute travesty how this guy doesn't have a Gold Glove. One of the biggest mysteries of life. And also, what's another mystery, how Ken Holtzman is not in the A's Hall of Fame. Over a 15-year career, Holtzman finished with 174 wins and a 3.49 ERA. He pitched nearly 2,900 professional innings. Beyond the sheer workload, He was a workhorse who gave managers length, poise, and confidence to go into games. His A's peak years weren't just good, they were elite. In 72, 19 games he won. 2.51 ERA. The following year, 21 wins. I mean, that rotation, Hunter, Holtzman, Vita Blue, was a nightmare for opponents across the league. At the time, the A's were shaping into their historic identity. Holtzman was more than a cog. He was one of the engines. It's crazy how Ken Holtzman is not in the A's Hall of Fame when you look at the names below. All those that are in, obviously, deserve it. But how Ken Holtzman's not in is kind of crazy. He helped define an era. The A's dynasty of the early 70s was more than just titles. It was a cultural statement of toughness, resilience, and underdog swagger. Holtzman embodied that ethos. He threw heat when it mattered. He kept the team in pennant races and stared into the eyes of some of baseball's biggest stars and the biggest stage. Back to back to back. And the way he's remembered by teammates and fans, that goes beyond stats. And not like his stats were anything to frown upon. His stats, like I said, were elite. Ken Holtzman wasn't just part of the A's dynasty. He helped build it. Dominant innings, clutch postseason outings, all-star recognition, and a workman's mentality that epitomized that championship culture. For what he meant to the A's staff, what he contributed to multiple titles, and the legacy he left on the mound, I don't think there's any question. Ken Holtzman deserves a place in the A's Hall of Fame. And I hope he does get recognized for that this year. Let's step away for 1 second away from the box score and into the heartbeat of the franchise, because some legacies aren't measured in wins or ERA. They are measured in moments. For decades, Ken Korach has been the voice carrying the A's through history, chaos, joy, and heartbreak. And when you think back on the biggest nights, you don't just remember what happened, you remember how it sounded. That's Hall of Fame impact. The case for Ken Korach up next. Welcome back to Locked On A's, talking 2026 Hall of Fame inductees. Why Mark Ellis? Why Ken Holtzman? And why Ken Korach should no doubtedly be in the A's Hall of Fame. When you think of someone worthy of the A's Hall of Fame, you think of impact, not just numbers or awards. And Ken Korach didn't grow up with a silver spoon in broadcasting. He built his craft from the ground up. He started in 1980. He did local high school sports, climbed through the minor leagues, the California League, the Pacific Coast League, and wrapping decades of radio experience into one of the most iconic voices in A's history. Korach joined the A's in 1996, and he stepped into one of the toughest jobs in baseball. I mean, he had to follow legendary voices like Bill King, and by 2005, he was the lead announcer. And he stayed there longer than most, including well over 2 decades calling A's games, a tenure only second to Bill King. That longevity isn't just seniority, it's the soundtrack of generations of fans. A Hall of Fame isn't just about staying around, it's about meaningful moments. Korach doesn't just narrate games, he captures them. He was on the mic for Dallas Braden's perfect game, called each pitch with clarity, with emotion and respect for the game. Longtime fans will tell you that certain calls, victories, heartbreaks, oddball, Oakland Magic aren't just memories, they're Korach memories. When the A's played their final games at the Coliseum, fans lit up the radio, not just to hear the results, but to feel the moment through his voice. That's the sort of legacy broadcasters earn when they become synonymous with a team's identity. But it isn't just nostalgia we're talking about. Korach's peers have recognized his work. He's a Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee and a member of the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame of Northern California. He's been honored as a Sportscaster of the Year in both California and Nevada. And here's where the Hall's case comes into focus. Korach isn't just a broadcaster. He's an ambassador for the A's in the community. He founded the A's Winning for the Community program, which supported local baseball programs in the Oakland Unified School District and connected A's victories to real-world impact off the field. He's also an author. His books, including Holy Toledo, about broadcasting legend Bill King, and If These Walls Could Talk, A's Tales, capture not just games, but the stories, further enshrining the A's lore beyond the scoreboard. You put it all together, the decades of radio calls, the championship moments, the personal connection to fans from coast to coast, and his work in the community, and you see his man whose impact reaches far beyond just the voice. And that's, to me, that's Hall of Fame territory. No question about it. The nominees for the A's Hall of Fame come from all walks of the franchise, on the field, in the front office, and behind the mic. Ken Korach's voice narrated the A's through decades of triumph, struggle, transition, and memory. The Hall is about legacy and connection, and Ken Korach isn't just eligible, he belongs. And for me, there's no doubt that all three should get in. What's up, Michael? Say hello. Great to finally catch you live. Appreciate you coming in. Appreciate you watching, Michael. For those on audio, I'm going to go ahead and tell you exactly who got into the A's Hall of Fame, so you know exactly who we're working with and who Mark Ellis, Ken Holtzman, and Ken Korach should be in as well. All right, let's start with last year, 2025. You had Tim Hudson, Mark Mulder, Barry Zito, longtime broadcaster Monty Moore were inducted in 2025. Let's go back to when the Hall of Fame actually inducted. In 2018, Raleigh Fingers, former A's owner Charlie Finley, Catfish Hunter, Ricky Henderson, Dave Stewart, Reggie Jackson, Dennis Eckersley. In 2019, former A's owner, arguably the best owner in A's history, Walter A's Haas Jr., Bert Campaneris, Tony La Russa, Mark McGuire, Vida Blue. In 2021, a lot of older A's, a lot of Philadelphia A's, Charles Chief Bender, Gordon Mickey Cochran, Eddie Collins, Jimmy Fox, Connie Mack, Robert Lefty Grove, Eddie Plank, Al Simmons, George Rube Waddell, Frank Home Run Baker. In 2022, Ray Fosse, Sal Bando, Eric Chavez, Joe Rudy, Keith Liepman, Steve Vucinich, 2023, Carney Lansford, Gene Tennis, Bob Johnson, Roy Steele, Jason Giambi. In 2024, Jose Canseco, Eddie Juice, Bill King, Terry Steinbach, Miguel Tejada, Dick Williams. And of course, I just said 2025. You know what's interesting about Jimmy Fox? Have you guys ever seen the movie A League of Their Own? With Madonna was in it, Gina Davis was in it, and Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks played a former MLB player who was managing the women's team. Now, according to what I've read and what I've seen, Tom Hanks' character in that movie is loosely based on former Philadelphia A's Jimmy Fox, which I thought was interesting. But that tells you something. I had Ken Korach on the show last year, spring training last year, and I asked him a question about how he calls games or some of his memorable calls. And before we conclude today, I want to play back that clip. Thanks again for tuning in today, guys, to Locked On A's. I appreciate you. I will check you guys out tomorrow. We may be going back to 5 days a week. But here is a little glimpse to last year and the interview I had with Ken Korach. You have called some historic moments like Dallas Braden's perfect game, the Jeter flip. What goes through your mind during high pressure moments like this? And you've done thousands of games over the years. Is there a particular moment, whether one of those that stands out as most memorable, or and I'm going to double down on that, or a call that you wish you could do over?
Great questions. I think in terms of what's going through my mind, the answer would be as little as possible.
Okay.
I just want to be in the moment. And that was to go back to your earlier question about how the old me would look at the younger me.
Sure.
I was so cluttered with stuff and trying to figure out what I was going to do I don't want to sound like some kind of Zen master, but I've tried to get into the Zen of the thing. And that is to really be immersed in the moment, to trust you've done your homework, you have a lot of experience, and just focus on the field and call what you see and trust that. So to be in the moment, and when the top of the ninth inning of Braden's perfect game began, I took all of my notes, the media guides, and put them on the table behind me. Right. And all I had was the scorebook and the microphone. And that was my approach to that. And I was just going to call whatever happened. And so, and it was also the most memorable moment because of the Hollywood aspect of it, as you know, Booney, because there's no way that anyone could script that someone who lost his mom and went through the difficulties that Dallas went through. And obviously the iconic shot of Dallas hugging his grandmother after the game. And as you know, I wrote in the book about losing my mom when I was 21.
Yes. Yeah.
And how Mother's Day was never a great, memorable, it wasn't a day I look forward to, nor was it for Dallas. And for that, all that to come together that day was really special.
Thanks for tuning in today to Locked On A's. We will be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. live on YouTube on audio. The show should be up at around 10 a.m. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On A's so you get all the latest episodes. You can find Locked On A's on social media on X, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Locked On A's. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On A's ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Do me a favor and head to lockedona's.supercast.com to join the club, or at least check it out. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On MLB.